Good morning. For those of you who were with me last week, you'll know that my son Ben's wedding was last Saturday, and they've had a really hard time because 250 guests turn into 30, and at the last minute the reception doesn't happen either, and everything seemed to be struggling. It was down in Preston, and just before the wedding, Preston was put back into lockdown. So it seemed though, well, it might be off. Well, it wasn't. And they had a lovely time. It was a beautiful church, and it didn't suffer too much from the fact that most of the pews were marked off. The vicar was great, and it was really nice to meet Emily's family. So it was a lovely occasion, and they got really married, and you could see the delight on their faces. Afterwards, keeping within the new rules and restrictions, nonetheless, friends, family, workmates made sure that the happy couple didn't just go off alone, and it turned out really, really well. So it just kind of shows you, doesn't it, that it's not all the razzmatazz, it's not all the expense, it's not all the special this, that, and the other that makes a special day. It's family and friends. It's people. We seem to want to have a lot of things, and that's one of the things I think that has changed a bit over the last few months. The things that we want have kind of reduced. I noticed a statistic the other day, which is quite interesting, in that although sales online have gone up, the number of items that are then sent back has gone down, which is quite interesting. I'm sure sociologists will be working on that one and trying to work out what's going on. But we do fill our life with things if we're not careful. And there's nothing wrong with things. I like things. It's just when things become all important. If only I had this, I'd be happy. If only I could get hold of two of those, life would be so much easier. But it's not necessarily, is it? Because whether life is easy or not is an inside thing. And so with the wedding, even though the restrictions meant that all sorts of things that had been planned couldn't happen, nonetheless the inside things, the relational things, they all happened in a different context, in a different way, but they were special. And I'm sure in years to come, I said to Ben, when you're talking to your grandchildren and they ask, "Granddad, when did you get married?" You can say, "Well, I got married during the pandemic." "Oh, Granddad, tell us about it." And he can tell quite a story, probably even more of a story than I could tell about my wedding. When things go difficult, when things go restrictive, our lives don't have to stop. They can carry on. They can just move on, because that's the way we're made. We're fearfully and wonderfully made, it says in the Bible. And so often I realize that is true. Not just things like how we're physically made, but how we're made up in so many different ways on the inside. There's something incredibly special about human beings that can have that kind of disastrous situation, it would seem, and make the most of it and really enjoy it. Anyway, that's all done. They're off to their honeymoon, well, life begins for them, doesn't it? How's life doing for you? What have you got on this next week? I've got one more week, and then there's a couple of weeks off, and that'll be nice. So you'll see me next week, but you won't for the 2 weeks after that on this pod. What are you going to be doing? What restrictions have been made on you? What can't you have? What can't you do? What plans have been thwarted? Well, sit down, look at it, and work out ways in which you can get delight from it, and you can deal with it, and you can overcome it, and you too can have that inner experience that perhaps gets a bit lost in the midst of all the things. If you have wanted to sort out and get to be with your friends and you can't be, or you're restricted, or the place that you were going to go now is like France, impossible because you can't spend 2 weeks sitting at home afterwards, find another way. Friendship is friendship, whether it's in France or in the Lake District or wherever. We're more special than things, you know. You are. So let's prove that this week as we move on. Okay? So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to tell you next week, but it's going to be interesting, I'm quite sure, because my weeks are very interesting these days. But maybe you'd have something to say as well about dealing with the inner person and not concentrating so much on things. Okay, anyway, have a great week, and I'll see you next week. All right, bye.